So my number two movie that shaped our sense of joy is The Death on the Nile from 1978. Very important distinction. This is not the Kenneth Branagh movie. I repeat, this is not the Kenneth Branagh movie. So directed by John Gurman. I'm probably ruining this pronunciation, but starring Peter Ustinov, Mia Farrow, Betty Davis, Angela Lansbury, David Niven. It's like a all-star cast. Maggie Smith. But the quick logline of the movie is as Hercule Poirot enjoys a luxurious cruise down the Nile, newlywed heiress is found murdered on board. Can Poirot identify the killer before the ship reaches the end of its journey? So this is on my list, and listeners probably know this from the past, is that I love British mystery movies. I love Poirot, Marpole. This whole world is comfort and cozy to me, but also very joyous to me. So I just love that. I will say that we are a movie podcast. If I could put TV shows or series, the Poirot BBC
Mm,
series would probably be on the top when it comes to joy and comfort and delight and all
uh-huh.
of it. But this is the next best thing that I can put from like a movie standpoint. But yeah, there's something about, I guess, Agatha Christie's writing and cast of characters, and Poirot especially is such a fascinating character to me, quirky and odd and unpleasant, but also kind of charming and delightful, but obviously amazing in what he does. I like Agatha Christie's kind of trope of, how something happens and then everybody gathers in a closed space to kind of then go over the reveal of what has happened, and all of
Yeah.
this brings me a lot of joy. And I think this movie obviously has all of that, but to top it all, it has exotic locations of being in Egypt, in this whole area. The ship is such an amazing container, if you will, for the murder mystery, but also just visually amazing. And then, as if that were not enough, this is an all-star cast. I don't know if Peter Ustinov is my favorite Poirot. I mean, David Suchet from the BBC series, nobody can even reach him in my mind.
Right,
He
right.
is Poirot, like it
Yeah.
just is Poirot. But I like this kind of slightly campy and goofy rendition and interpretation that Peter Ustinov has. But to me, the scene stealers are the three, amazing legends of screen: Betty Davis, Maggie Smith, and Angela Lansbury. They're
Oh
at
yeah.
their camp best
Yeah.
in this movie, and it's just so delightful and joyous, to watch them, throw digs at each other. They're over the top. They're dressed in their fabulous costumes. By the way, this movie, I think, is an Oscar winner for costumes,
Oh.
and it should be. So yeah, so for all those reasons, this is very fun to me. But yeah, had you watched this movie before? Or what is your relationship with Poirot in general?
I've seen the covers of the VHS tapes at the library is my sort of experience with him. And it's not that I don't like mysteries, it just was never a genre in any sort of form, literary, television, or film that I kind of gravitate towards. Though I do appreciate especially the Agatha Christie formula, which
Yeah.
I've seen parodied more than I've seen or read the originals. So it just always interesting watching movies like this, which is the first time I've seen this one. I've not seen the remake either. So this is the first time I've just knew about this story,
I haven't seen
actually.
the remake either, and I never will.
It's interesting going back and seeing something like this where I've seen the parodies so many times. Now it's like, oh, this is like the original story where these things come from. So it was a fun watch. I think the two things that stood out to me about this movie were the things you mentioned on the locations. I don't know if it was filmed in Egypt, but at least it was
Oh,
filmed
it
somewhere
is.
that it looks like Egypt. Okay, so it was actual Egypt. That was really cool. Real locations, real
Yeah.
sets, or not sets, like real like location versus what it looked like. I mean, I don't want to slog off the Brown movie because I haven't seen it, but it looked like that was just everyone in a room with
Oh,
green screen,
CGI. Right.
right? And the cast was just great in this. Like I was just surprised like how many people were in this, and then remembering, oh yeah, that sort of is a trope of these types of movies too, especially the Christie ones where there's like 20 suspects and all of them are famous actors late in their career, like a Betty Davis, or famous sort of character actors like an Angela Lansbury. It's just fun to see all these folks in the same movie, like acting against one
Yeah.
another. Mia Farrow, that was funny seeing her,
Yeah.
like David Niven, like all these guys, like all in the same film. So that was fun to see. And the mystery was interesting enough. I the types of mysteries that I like are ones where this is more so in literary works than film, where I, as the audience member or the reader, I can figure it out along with the sleuth instead of, the Agatha Christie formula is like, oh yeah, by the way, there's all these things that I didn't tell you earlier. I mean, they're there, but like I didn't draw attention or I didn't even mention this. But oh yeah, this is how like, the main character or the detective or whatever can figure it out. So, the last 20 minutes is basically him in a room explaining all these things that you didn't even see because the movie didn't show you this. It's like, okay, well, I can't figure it out, but it was fun. I can see why this is a specific genre that, a lot of people in the world really love and that you gravitate towards too, not only as a sense of comfort, because there is a comfort in the formula of these types of movies, but also just in the execution. I thought it was good. Like it was entertaining enough and felt also big enough for like a movie.
Yeah.
That it didn't really feel like, oh, this should have just been a mini series or just a PBS or BBC special. Like, no, they gave it the scope that it deserved. So it was an enjoyable watch.
Yeah, the locations and the actors and the star cast and all like really elevates it. That's why the BBC mysteries to me are better because they're tighter. And they also spend a little bit more time in character development, especially of Poirot. Like you really get to see his quirks and oddities either exhibited by him and also other people reacting to him. But because they're, bigger stars and things and bigger scope, what gets maybe a little bit shortchanged is all of those kind of idiosyncrasies, that Poirot is really known for. And to me, that is so much of the joy of this. It's less about the actual plot or the mystery or who done it. Like, sure, I am interested in that to a degree, but it's really more about just Poirot's, wackiness, if you will, and how other people bounce off of that. Like that to me is sort of more fun. And then the setting where it's all happening. So there are elements of that here for sure. But yeah, I agree. Like the latter half of the movie kind of drags quite a bit. Even though I am very familiar with the formula and I like it, it does drag. So it's not
you need
perfect.
that though. It is the formula, right? It's at the end you have to get him back in a room and be like, okay, I'm gonna spend time explaining actually what happened to
I know, but
part of what it's supposed to be.
In the TV series, not to be comparing to that again and again, like that is like 5 minutes at the end.
Oh, really?
Here,
oh, okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
they don't spend that much time typically. This is like a lot, but it's still quite fun. I quite enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean that's a classic trope of this is that you want that scene of the detective be like, actually it was, you might think, but actually it was you, and like you were there, and it's like, no, it wasn't me, and then it's like, oh, it is, and then conveniently the murderer just happens to fall on a knife or something, because the hero can never kill the bad guy in these movies. Either like the suspects kill each other or someone actually accidentally falls out a window or something, because the detective is just a passive observer who pieces everything together. They're not like an action star where they're gonna arrest, and the person can't get arrested either. If for some reason they never trust the law to prosecute, they have to always be someone dies. Typically, I mean, again, I'm not an expert of this genre, but when I've seen it kind of parodied, it's always like the suspect always, something happens. They fall off.
It's kind of dark in this movie, but in the typical Agatha Christie movies, there is Inspector Japp, who's kind of paired with Poirot, so they arrest the person. Typically.
Oh, okay, so someone does go to jail. Okay, it's not like the Disney villain of like, oh, accidentally fall off a mountain because the hero can't kill the villain. The villain has to accidentally kill themselves. Okay, but yeah, this was fun, and definitely in seeing this movie, which again, I didn't even know this movie existed, to be honest. I never even heard of this story until the Kenneth Branagh one came out. Like, Death on the Nile, is that like a real Agatha Christie thing? And then I Wikipedia'd and I was like, oh, it is. So I didn't even know there was this. And seeing this movie now makes me more understand why the remake got so much negative criticism, even just through the trailers, because it just feels like a sort of a vapid, boring, CGI heavy retread of they did not bring in the best of the best actors in this. Also in the remake. It's like in this one, it's fun to see. Like I said, all these actors at various stages of their careers. They're legends. This new one, I mean, other than Kenneth Branagh, who he is a legend, but no one else in that remake was. So it like ruins a lot of the fun of movies like this, where you want the ensemble with a lot of interesting actors who've never acted together. You wouldn't expect them to be in the same scene as well. There's Betty Davis and Angela Lansbury. Like, how cool is that?
Exactly. And then I think it has that kind of 70s movie vibe, right? Like things are slower and there's a lot of breath in the movie. I love that. You really kind of get to sit with the location and the people, and all of that is great. Versus from the trailer of the new one, which again is unfair to even compare to this because they're in like totally different leagues. Like that just feels like jump cuts, It feels like a commercial video, essentially, not a movie at all.
Right.
The other thing I would say is that also, like, I find the 1920s, which is where most of these Agatha Christie or like Art Deco world is where these movies take place. I love that setup. This movie, of course, the costumes are over the top because we are dealing with some really over the top people.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
fun though.
one of the characters, Angela Lansbury's character's name is Autumn Solaborn. I mean, this is this is who we are dealing with.
Yeah.
But even so, fun. But B, just even people who are not over the top, I just love the costuming and the style and the lettering and all of that from that time period just is very fun and joyous to me. So yeah, I'm glad you had a chance to check it out. I would say if you're ever in the mood, check out the BBC series, and I can recommend certain episodes to you. Like, it's just so fun, and just watching David Suchet, who basically gave his whole life to play
this part.
Poirot,
over decades.
just so amazing, and what a through and through transformation. It's moving to me to kind of watch him do that.
That's cool. Yeah, and I'll definitely, if I'm in the mood for a cozy mystery, let you know which episodes I should check out first.
Sounds good.
Hey there, it's Alex. If you like the review and discussion Karan and I just had, make sure you subscribe to our channel, Movies That Shaped Us, to get full episodes. Every other Wednesday, Karan and I cover a topic around important people, places, events, and moments in our lives, and then explore it through 3 of our favorite movies. Subscribe right now, or follow our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts via the link in the description below. Hope you join us for the journey.